So at the time of this video, it's pretty late. I should be in bed, but I'm just sitting here as usual, thinking, and I wanted to just hit record and tell you guys a story. Growing up in my old neighborhood, across the street from our house, there was a dope house. People coming and going, buying and selling, hoeing, fighting, chaos, drive-bys. Like it was a busy house. One of the people that lived there was a guy named Kimmy. Kimmy looked like Jesus. We used to call him Jesus as a joke. He was what we wrote off as like a schizo. Every day, 7 days a week, from sun up to sundown, Kimmy would pace back and forth out the front door, down to the sidewalk, down the street, back up the stairs, into the house, and he would just do this all day, every single day. He would almost always have a cigarette, and he'd be messing with his hair, talking to himself, and just in like this deep, intense conversation. Looking overwhelmed and stressed and just... And as teenagers, we kind of just made fun of him, wrote it off. Nut job. Something happened one day that changed the way I thought about him. And to this day, I still wonder about it. We were hanging out in the driveway. We had one of these like broke down, like Huffy basketball hoops or whatever the brand was. And we're in the driveway with this crappy basketball, shooting hoops, goofing around. It was me, my brothers, our buddy Jimmy. Maybe someone else was there. I don't remember. I was probably 16 or 17 at the time. And we were starstruck because this Kimmy dude, he's looking at us and he starts walking over. So we're like, oh my God, it's Kimmy. What? Oh man, he's coming to talk to us. He comes down the driveway and he's like being kind of cool, like snapping in and out of reality. He's like, give me the ball. And he's like trying to shoot. And he starts talking to us a little bit. And as you talk to him, you can tell he's in and out. He's there with you one minute, then he's kind of gone the next. But he started rattling off personal info about all of us, and he had never talked to any of us before. He started naming off everybody's zodiac sign, for starters, which, how he got everybody right, maybe it's coincidence. But he's like, he points to me, he goes, yeah, you're a Leo, you're this and you're that. And he's like talking about past stuff. My buddy Jimmy, who's a Gemini, he's like, yeah, you're a Gemini. You know, you're a soldier, you blah, blah. And Jimmy was in the Marines. He had just got back from the Marines not long before this. And he's telling me you're a soldier. And he starts naming off these stories and talking about people. And Jimmy's face went ice cold. I'm getting goosebumps right now even telling this story. He goes to my oldest brother, talking about how he's a Taurus. And he starts talking about some past stuff with him. Talking about him playing the guitar and the guitar that... Just like all this wild shit that you wouldn't think he would know. He had no way of knowing. One guy that we did know that stayed at that house, guy had some addiction problems. His name was Todd. And Todd was like a neighborhood booster. He would get you stuff. You'd buy it at half price. He would just show up with random things to sell to us or anybody else. He would like ask you what you wanted and go try to get it. Just a neighborhood booster. But he stayed in that house as well. And him and Kimmy slept in the basement. And I brought that story up to Todd, and I'm like, dude, Kimmy came over the other day, and he starts rattling off all this stuff about all of us and talking about Jimmy's grandmother, and he starts talking about this guy that Jimmy, one of his buddies in the Marines that he lost. And the guy said to say hi, and Jimmy really knew the guy's name that he named. And I'm like, dude, that can't be a coincidence. And Todd said, you know, I sleep in the basement with Kimmy, and every night, he's just at war with himself, having these conversations and going on and on. And the shit he says tiptoes, teeter-totters between brilliance and insanity. And as I told Todd that story, Todd tells me with like tears in his eyes. He's like, dude, just however many nights ago, I think it's like 2 nights ago, I don't remember the exact details, but he's like, just like the other night, Kimmy rolls out of his little cot, the little cot bed he's laying in. He's like, Todd, Agnes, I think his grandma's name was like Agnes. I forget the name, but it was some weird name that started with an A. He said, Kimmy goes, hey, Todd, Agnes, I'm talking to Agnes, and Agnes said to tell you whatever, and blah, blah. That's your grandma. And Todd was like, I'm getting goosebumps again right now as I tell this story. And Todd was telling me, like, he got goosebumps, and he got all teary-eyed, and he's like, what did you just say, dude? And that Kimmy goes like, yeah, Agnes, your grandma, she told me to tell you hi, and she's doing okay, and she's wants you to know she's happy, and told you to stay away from so-and-so. And he's like rattling off this shit about Todd's grandma that he had lost however many years ago. Again, Kimmy has no way of knowing this. That changed the way I thought about, like, crazy people. And let me be clear. I'm not saying there's no such thing as whatever mental illness. I'm not saying that. But I'm wondering out loud. Like, I'm brainstorming. What's the overlap between brilliance and insanity? Is there overlap? I'm sure there is to some degree. To what degree, though? How thin is the line between brilliance and insanity? And with a lot of these, like, crazy people, with what I know now or what I knew after learning more about, like, his gift, if you will, I wonder how many of these people are just, like, receiving too much that they can't unscramble or decode or organize or, like, read and digest in their mind. I learned later on that Kimmy's story was he was never like that. He just was, like, partying all the time and went on a trip of what, I forget what they said he used, but he tripped out and never came back. Again, I have no idea if that's true. That's just the story I was told. He tripped one day and never came back, and he's just always been like that. I've always heard that humans use like 5% of their brain, or these random numbers people will throw around. So I'd like to think that we have the ability for more. Like, we have the capability is at least possible or potentially possible, that we have the capacity to think, feel, and know more than we do on the surface, than what we think we do or think we can. But I've never been able to wrap my head around where that ends. Just what is possible with our minds. Because again, with Kimmy, he was just somebody I wrote off as like a nut job, crazy guy. But time and time again, people would say he was like literally a psychic. He just out of nowhere say like, hey, who's this guy Steve with the glasses and blah, blah. It's like, well, that's my uncle. Yeah, he has a tattoo right here. But he's like, tell you this stuff. Yeah, he said to say hi, and I'm talking to him, and he said for you to stop doing this. Like, whatever. He'd just say weird stuff like this. And everybody'd freak out. But then a lot of what he said was just like crazy talk. So then I wonder how much of it was crazy talk. And how many of these like crazy people are just feeling things that are overwhelming that they can't rationalize. How many of them are getting something like a radio signal that's just too much for them to comprehend or to rationalize or to organize or to decode or read? Like, how much of it is just something is unlocked that's it's too much for them, so they're just getting things or feeling things or receiving things that they just can't quite decode or comprehend or whatever word you want to use. I've always wondered that after Kimmy. And as I sit here tonight, I should be in bed, but I'm just thinking about stress and overthinking and anxiety and what ifs. And then my brain started going back to him tonight. And that's why I wanted to hit record and talk about it. Because I've always been changed since meeting him and since learning this like gift that he had. I wonder now, like, how much overlap is there between brilliance and insanity? How thin is the line between brilliance and insanity? I don't know. What do you guys think?